you honor me with this dance?
A Somalian warlord once confessed that he couldn't deny Audrey Hepburn's request for safe passage for a food convoy. Not from fear, but from a strange sense of wanting to live up to her unspoken expectations. The Nazis certainly underestimated her when she carried resistance messages in her ballet shoes as a girl in occupied Netherlands during the war. Having to survive by eating tulip bulbs and grass, Audrey Hepburn was a survivor, and had developed a way about her which demanded respect and made men fall helplessly in love with her. As an aristocratic child in Belgium, Audrey spoke 5 languages and attended an elite private school in England. After moving several times, her privileged existence shattered when her father, Joseph Rustin, walked out on the family. His departure left them stranded in the Netherlands just as Nazi forces invaded. The war years stripped away every comfort she'd known. While her peers worried about school dances, Audrey carried secret messages for the resistance in her ballet shoes, knowing discovery meant death. She performed in black performances, secret shows that raised money for the Dutch resistance. When food became scarce, she ground tulip bulbs into flour and ate grass to survive. The Nazis executed her uncle in retaliation for resistance activities, and she watched helplessly as Jewish friends disappeared. Those war years forged something unique in her. She learned to dance in shoes stuffed with paper to hide the holes, performing in basements for audiences willing to risk execution to watch. Even as hunger gnawed at her, she maintained perfect posture and grace. When German soldiers attended these performances, she danced knowing they might recognize her as a resistance messenger. This ability to appear calm while in mortal danger became second nature. The aftermath of war left her with calculated survival instincts, masked by ethereal beauty. Hollywood executives soon discovered they couldn't manipulate her like other actresses. When one producer attempted to pressure her into a role by threatening her career, she simply smiled and walked away. The same producer later admitted, "She had this way of saying no that made you feel like you'd been given a gift." Her first love affair in Rome revealed her complex nature. The young Italian aristocrat who courted her discovered that beneath her gentle demeanor lay an unshakable will. When he demanded she choose between marriage and career, she ended the relationship without drama or discussion. He later wrote in his memoir, "She had the softness of a flower, but the decisiveness of a general." Roman holiday changed everything for her. Gregory Peck, used to being the dominant presence in his films, found himself unconsciously deferring to her in scenes. "She never demanded attention," he noted in private correspondence, "yet you couldn't look at anyone else when she was on the screen." Their chemistry was so powerful that rumors of an affair persisted for years, though both maintained no more than a deep friendship. William Holden's experience during Sabrina became a pivotal moment in Hollywood's understanding of Audrey's complexity. Their first script reading set the tone. Witnesses described an electric atmosphere as their initial lines transformed into something far beyond Wilder's dialogue. Their affair began quietly, in stolen moments between scenes. On set, their chemistry was palpable, but professional, with Holden later admitting he found himself unconsciously adjusting his performance to match her subtle emotional register.
Where were we?
Bang, bang, bang! That's where we were. Or rather, where you were. She was standing by the bed with a gun in her hand, and he was moving toward her. I don't see how Frankenstein and my fair lady are the same.
In private moments between scenes, he discovered a woman who could discuss the darkest aspects of human nature while maintaining an air of innocence. She spoke of her war experiences rarely, but when she did, Holden noticed that she could relate horrific events with a detachment that seemed both protective and revealing. When the inevitable end came, prompted by his inability to have children, her handling of it demonstrated the steel beneath her gentle exterior. She ended it with these devastating words, "I would rather hurt us both now than destroy us both later." The impact of their relationship lingered through the years, surfacing again during Paris when it sizzles. By then, Holden's alcoholism threatened to derail the production. Without fanfare or public acknowledgement, Audrey orchestrated a careful restructuring of the shooting schedule, ensuring his close-ups were filmed in the morning when he was sober. She protected both his dignity and the film, never once revealing the careful orchestration behind her actions. During one particularly difficult day, when Holden could barely stand, she diverted attention by deliberately flubbing her own lines, taking the pressure off him while maintaining his professional reputation. The fashion world discovered her particular power through her relationship with Givenchy. Their legendary first meeting in 1953 set the standard for their decades-long collaboration. Arriving at his studio unannounced, dressed in simple cotton pants and a t-shirt, she faced immediate dismissal from his staff. Rather than argue or assert her growing fame, she simply waited. For 6 hours, she sat in his reception area, radiating calm certainty. When Givenchy finally emerged, intrigued by reports of this persistent visitor, he found her reading quietly, completely at ease. This quiet persistence, combined with her absolute clarity about what she wanted, transformed their initial interaction into fashion's most celebrated partnership. During their first fitting session, she demonstrated her unique approach to collaboration. While other actresses demanded immediate attention and specific designs, Audrey spoke to Givenchy about the characters she would be playing, the emotions she needed to convey through clothing. "She taught me that true elegance needs no announcement," he later revealed. Their work together revolutionized both fashion and film costuming, creating looks that seemed to emerge naturally from character rather than being imposed by design. Other designers noticed how she wore their most dramatic creations while making them seem secondary to her presence. Valentino observed this unique quality, noting, "Most actresses become overwhelmed by the clothes, but Audrey made even the grandest designs seem like natural extensions of her character." During fittings, she would often stand perfectly still for hours, maintaining the same serene expression whether being draped in haute couture or pricked by errant pins. This patience, learned during wartime performances, became legendary among fashion houses. Her marriage to Mel Ferrer revealed how war had taught her to navigate complex power dynamics. From their first collaboration in the stage production of Ondine, she established a pattern of appearing to defer while maintain complete autonomy. Hollywood expected the typical story, a powerful man controlling his delicate wife. Instead, they witnessed a masterclass in subtle autonomy. During their filming of War and Peace, crew members observed how she would appear to seek his approval for every decision while somehow maintaining her own artistic vision intact. When Ferrer attempted to block her from accepting breakfast at Tiffany's, considering it beneath her dignity, she demonstrated her wartime lessons in resistance. She appeared to listen intently to all his objections, offering no argument or defense. Then, without confrontation or drama, she signed the contract and informed him after the fact. This pattern repeated throughout their 14-year marriage. She would bend like a reed in the wind, only to remain exactly where she intended to be. Their domestic life followed similar patterns, with Ferrer believing he controlled their household, while Audrey quietly maintained her independence through a network of loyal staff and friends who understood her subtle signals. Blake Edwards encountered the same quality while directing Breakfast at Tiffany's. The famous party scene presented a particular challenge, managing a room full of Hollywood's most sophisticated actors. Instead of relying on traditional directing techniques, Edward watched in amazement as Audrey controlled the crowd's energy through subtle gestures and micro-expressions. She had this power, never pushed, never forced, that made everyone else adjust to her rhythm, he later confided to Peter Bogdanovich. This ability to command without commanding became her signature on set. Peter O'Toole's experience during How to Steal a Million further illuminated what he termed the Hepburn effect. Known for his rebellious nature and intense masculinity, O'Toole arrived on set with his usual commanding presence. During their first scene together, he attempted his characteristic theatrical dominance, only to find himself unconsciously softening his approach. Not because she appeared fragile, but because she emanated a strength that made traditional masculine posturing seem superficial. She had known real danger, he reflected, which made our Hollywood dramas seem like child's play. Throughout filming, crew members noticed how O'Toole, famous for his dark moods and explosive temper, would visibly calm in her presence. During one particularly tense day of filming, when technical difficulties had pushed everyone to their limits, Audrey's quiet persistence transformed the atmosphere without a word being spoken. Her second marriage to psychiatrist Andrea Dotti revealed another dimension of her complexity. Their courtship in Rome had been a dance of intellects, with Dotti convinced his psychological training would help him understand her depths. He approached their relationship as a professional challenge, certain he could analyze and catalogue her mysterious appeal. Instead, he encountered a woman whose experiences defied clinical analysis. During their early marriage, he attempted to document her response to various situations, maintaining private notes about her behavior. His attempts to study her were met with perfect cooperation that somehow revealed nothing. When Dotti pressed for her to abandon her career for domestic life in Rome, she demonstrated her mastery of subtle resistance. She agreed with such apparent sincerity that he felt victorious, watching as she seemed to embrace the role of Italian housewife. Yet somehow, carefully selected projects continued to emerge. She would present each opportunity as a complete surprise, discussing it with such genuine consideration of his opinion that he found himself agreeing despite his previous objections. Their marriage became a masterclass in the power dynamics she had learned during the occupation, appearing to submit while maintaining complete internal autonomy. Cecil Beaton, during their many photo sessions, observed this duality up close. Unlike other actresses who arrived with detailed demands about their best angles, Audrey would enter his studio with an openness that paradoxically gave her complete control. He noted in his private diaries about the challenge of capturing her essence. There's something in her eyes that speaks of having seen humanity at its worst, yet choosing to represent its best. During one particularly lengthy session, he watched in fascination as she maintained the same serene presence through hour 7 as she made in hour 1, never showing fatigue or impatience. She moved between absolute strength and touching vulnerability within the same frame, creating images that left even the most experienced photographers questioning their understanding of feminine power. Her handling of studio politics revealed similar mastery. When Universal executives pushed for script changes to wait until dark that would have weakened her character, she employed the same tactics that had once helped her survive Nazi checkpoints. Rather than engaging in confrontation, she invited them to watch raw footage of her most intense scenes. Without argument or discussion, they withdrew their demands. One executive later admitted, "She had a way of making you feel foolish for underestimating her without ever making you feel foolish." This pattern repeated throughout her career, achieving her goals without ever appearing to fight for them. Her approach to aging in Hollywood defied every convention. While contemporaries fought time with surgeries and increasingly desperate comebacks, Audrey simply shifted her focus to humanitarian work. Yet even there, her paradoxical appeal remained. Hardened photojournalists who prided themselves on emotional distance found themselves sharing their war zone experiences with her, recognizing in her eyes an understanding that went beyond sympathy to true comprehension. Her UNICEF work in her final years demonstrated her most powerful duality. In war zones and refugee camps, she confronted warlords and military officers without weapons or protection. One photographer captured a moment in Somalia where she secured safe passage for a food convoy through sheer presence. The warlord later confessed he couldn't deny her request, not from fear, but from a strange sense of wanting to live up to her unspoken expectations. The secret of her impact on men began to emerge through detailed interviews with Dutch resistance survivors. In the darkest days of the occupation, young Audrey had perfected an art that would later enchant millions. When carrying messages past Nazi checkpoints, she developed a presence that made armed soldiers see her as harmless while she carried intelligence that could destroy them. This duality became more than a survival strategy. It transformed into the essence of her being. Those who knew her during the war years spoke of a profound transformation. The girl who entered the occupation as a privileged ballet student emerged as something entirely different. While other survivors carried visible scars of hardship, Audrey emerged with an invisible armor. The ability to disarm the most powerful men with a glance that was both yielding and unshakable. Ben Gazzara, her co-star in Bloodline, came closest to articulating what others had sensed but never understood. Most actresses played at being strong or vulnerable. Audrey was both simultaneously, and neither was an act. This authentic paradox affected men in a way that mere beauty or charm never could. Her son Sean Hepburn Furr's discovery of her wartime diary revealed the exact moment this transformation occurred. After watching the Nazis execute resistance members in the town square, 16-year-old Audrey wrote what would become the key to her mysterious power over men. I learned today that true strength lies in never letting them see either your fear or your power.